Now listen to part of a lecture on this topic in a biology class.
We have been discussing the three symbiotic relationships between species: mutualism, in which both organisms benefit; parasitism, in which one benefits and the other is harmed; and commensalism, where one benefits while neither benefiting nor harming the other. Now, of course, these relationships are not always clear-cut. For example, there is a plant called a bee orchid. Its flowers look like female bees, to the male bee anyway. The bee orchid tricks the male bee into mating with the flower, thus pollinating it. However, we don't know if, in fact, the relationship between this particular plant and the bee is mutualism, parasitism, or commensalism. Sometimes the relationship actually changes. Let me give you some examples. We have bacteria on our skin, for instance. These colonies of bacteria don't harm us. So we can say that at this point, the relationship is commensal. But what happens if we get burned? The bacteria on our skin can take advantage of the burn and cause infections. The bacteria turn into what we call an opportunistic pathogen. A pathogen, by the way, is parasitic. Here's another example. Shrimp and crabs take advantage of colonies of coral, which provide a nice home. They neither harm nor benefit the coral colonies. So the relationship here is also commensal. But sometimes a coral-eating sea star attacks the coral. At that point, the shrimp and crabs defend the coral. Without these creatures to protect it, the coral would be eaten. So, in this case, the relationship becomes mutual. The coral and its defenders are now in a relationship in which both organisms benefit.
Listen to part of a lecture in a cultural studies class.
Although the entertainment industry is concerned with telling a good story, it has had a profound effect on people's conceptions and misconceptions of the world around them. Let me give you an example. There are many films and TV programs in which a serious crime takes place and a police detective solves, or maybe doesn't solve, the crime. It appears that these fictional crimes, added to news reports of real crime, cause viewers' perception of the rate of criminal behavior to outrank, to exaggerate reality. In other words, the actual, let's say, murder rate is probably well below people's perception of the murder rate. I've just been talking about misconceptions of crime rates, but there are other misconceptions which may be more harmful. Now, I'm not saying that believing in an exaggerated level of criminality, say a high murder rate, isn't harmful. It could cause a lot of people undue stress, for example. But what I mean is misconceptions about race and gender stereotypes. A person of a different race or a female being typecast into certain roles. Think about, for example, the portrayal of a person in a wheelchair. He or she is either portrayed as overcoming incredible odds to do heroic deeds, or, on the other hand, being a helpless victim. Does this promote understanding or misconceptions? In the movies, doctors perform miracles, lawyers win cases, and crime scene investigators find the evidence. People in these actual professions often get clients with unreasonable expectations. Professional people comment that the reality of their daily routine, their job, is seldom like that portrayed in the media. Students are sometimes disillusioned about their career choice because the job seemed much more interesting in the television program than in reality. Unfortunately, we make these judgmental mistakes about our own society knowing full well the existence of the fantasy created by the media industry.
Now listen to part of a lecture on the topic you just read about.
Often in medical research, new evidence makes us take a fresh look at causation. Now, the immediate causes of asthma are not in doubt, but there is some new thinking about the fundamental causes of this condition. It's been said that after an asthma attack, the airways of the sufferer return to normal. But what about in between attacks? Until recently, it was assumed that bronchial function returned to normal until the onset of a new attack. But it has become clear in some asthmatics that the airways can become permanently narrowed and the walls of the airways thickened. These abnormalities in asthmatics' airways are due to what is called remodeling. It used to be thought that remodeling was the result of long-term inflammation, a kind of scarring from repeated episodes over a long period. But more recently, it has been suggested that remodeling of the tubes is not only a result of this scarring, but also may be the primary cause of the condition. In other words, remodeling may be fundamental to the disease. This idea has gained acceptability recently due to evidence from studies of young children. This research shows that many asthmatic children already have remodeled airways. So according to this view, remodeling is not just a consequence of asthma. It may also be an underlying cause. So what causes the remodeling in the first place? Certainly, genetic factors play a role. But it seems that a combination of genetics and the environment are to blame. In other words, certain individuals may develop remodeled, vulnerable airways due to the environment affecting them even before birth.